Let's recruit more volunteers in the church. Now, on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malfers Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Matthew.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, AJ Matthew. Well, a little behind the scenes action here. It's been a little while since we've been sitting here recording podcasts, so it's good to be back in the saddle.
Feeling a little rusty.
But I'm sure we'll get the hang of it here quickly. Listener, you may have noticed a bit of a trend the last couple of weeks in the podcast. 2 weeks ago, in your time, we released an episode on temperament and how that relates to volunteer recruitment. And last week we were busting some myths about spiritual gifts and kind of tying that also into volunteer recruitment. Today we're talking about timing, really, like when is the best time for volunteer recruitment. There's a lot of volunteer recruitment themes, and that's all on purpose. And that's because coming up this week, this Thursday, we have a workshop inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit on volunteer recruitment, about recruiting volunteers and leveraging divine design to do that really well. We have an incredible tool that is inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit that takes people in your church through divine design discovery. That includes DISC and some spiritual gifts assessments, and then it helps match them to potential volunteer roles that align well with their gifting. And that's a tool that exists inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit. And we're going to be talking about how to use that tool, how you could deploy that tool in your church, how you could use it in some different ways. And so if you would be interested in attending that workshop and checking out this tool, you can do that for free by going to healthychurchestoolkit.com and signing up for a 7-day trial where you can test drive it, see it, join us for the workshop. It's going to be on Thursday, as this is being released, Thursday, June 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So there you go. There's your promo. You should join us for that.
Definitely should join us with that. If you are outside of North America, go to healthychurchesglobal.com because the toolkit is available for you at no cost. You'll get to take advantage of this new tool that Scott just described and be on that workshop if you're able to make that time zone work out. Because, Eastern Time, U.S. Love to have you over there.
Yeah, listen, I hear this. We designed this tool because when we take churches through the leadership pipeline process, one of the most constant refrains I was hearing from leaders was, do you have a good online tool for spiritual gifts and DISC? And is there anything that helps people like automatically help people kind of figure out what would be a good fit for them? And there's just not a lot out there. I'm not saying there's nothing, but there's not a lot out there that does that. And so we saw an opportunity to create a tool that lives alongside all the other incredible tools inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit. And it works great. I'm really, really proud of that. And I think it can really bless your church. So please definitely join us.
There's a lot of DISC assessments out there that you can do for free. There's a lot of spiritual gifts assessments you can do for free. There is not much, if anything, in the space that takes that information, puts it in the context of church volunteer spaces, and severely shortcuts the time, because you could obviously do this manually, but that would be really time consuming to go through that and think about it, or even to create like your own internal like chart or something like this equates to that. So we just saved you a ton of time, and I think you're going to love it. Definitely try it out.
Yep. All right. So today we're talking about when is the best time for volunteer recruitment. And I mean, like, I kind of mean season. I kind of mean timing. Like, what are some best practices for volunteer recruitment as it relates to when we should do this? And so we've got five things for you to think about, and we'll hop into them.
Let's go. The first one is when a person is new to your church. This is a conversation that we have more and more, Scott. I think definitely in the last 3 or 4 years. We used to talk a lot in discipleship pathway. You used to talk about like an engagement, a gather, a worship step in a pathway. And then we would look at a growth step, and then we would look at a service step. And a lot of churches have discovered it's way easier to have people, instead of trying to get them into a group or a class, to get them engaged in serving, depending on, of course, lots of factors here. Their maturity level, whether they're a believer or not even. And so that's what we're talking about here. When they're new to the church, it may be a great time to introduce them to areas that they could serve in the church. And there are, obviously tons of spaces that people can fit into. And again, we don't do this just, on a whim, like, whatever, there's just go do that. We don't know anything about you. Just go do that. There's a lot more to that, but this is a great time when people are new. And this, it's worth mentioning. Scott, I know both of us, we engage with a lot of churches that have this idea of, well, we don't want to rush people into that, or we don't want to push people into that, or they need time to heal. They need time to rest. Sure, that might be true of some people. I would not suggest that as a blanket for all people, because some people are fired up and ready to go. And you just need to get to know their life circumstance. What has brought them into your church? But I would say the majority of people probably coming to your church would be ready to get engaged in a relatively short period of time. And you could find a place that they could begin building community and express the gifts that they've been given, benefit others, and find blessing for themselves.
Yeah. We, as you said, we kind of share this all the time now, that you really want to narrow that delta between when someone first starts attending your church and when they get connected into volunteering. One, because they're never going to be more excited about your church than when they're new. And two, they've not had a chance to build any bad habits of just sitting, getting used to everything done for them. And so they're still kind of willing to pitch in. Three, they're interested in forming relationships, and you can form relationships faster in that volunteering environment than in a small group environment often, because it's less intimidating. Would be the reason why. And like you mentioned, we're not saying make someone a small group leader on day one because you don't know them, but there are all kinds of low commitment and low responsibility type opportunities, being a greeter, working on the tech team, making coffee. There are all kinds of places where people can jump in relatively quickly with minimal risk to the church, and going, well, what if they're not qualified? Well, the qualifications are pretty low. You're not going to throw them in children's ministry or student ministry or something like that without running background checks and knowing them and trusting them. But there are places where you can get people plugged in really quickly. We have seen this be highly effective in getting, increasing the stickiness of a church when you can get them connected to serving as quickly as possible. So that would be definitely number one. When someone is new, you want to get them serving as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
So kind of a good dovetail to the second one, actually.
It is, yeah. The second one is it's happening more so in that early relationship stage with somebody new. Some people might delay this, but we're talking about when they go through your membership class. Could even be like a newcomer's class.
Yeah, wouldn't even have to be membership necessarily.
Yeah. So, but it's one of these more formal introduction environments to the church. And if they are going for membership, then integrating some divine design discovery elements to that would be something we would highly recommend.
You may, for example, have them take the assessment that's in the toolkit. Yeah.
We've got a link for you here out of our Healthy Churches Toolkit subscription.
Yeah, healthychurchestoolkit.com.
Membership class, great time to have that be a step into then a place of serving in the church.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is really important. In fact, I would contend that if you haven't caught them up into serving earlier, then this would be the place where you would almost put a requirement less on them, although maybe it is that, but as sort of a pushed outcome from the leadership level, where that's a metric that you're tracking. What percentage of people who take the newcomer class or the new member class, what percentage of those people get connected into a team as they come out of that class, and really put the pressure on your leadership and the people who are running that class to make sure and facilitate that happens. And again, I hate to keep plugging this, but when you have a tool like what we have in the toolkit, it makes it so much easier, because now the reason why this is kind of skipping to the third point here, but the reason why churches will say, well, we've tried this. We've tried having people take a spiritual gifts test, but then that doesn't move the needle on volunteering. Well, that's because there's an extra step that's needed. It isn't just enough to go, here are your gifts. You have to then match that up with, and here are the specific opportunities that match up to that gifts. That's that bridge that's often missing. When you equip someone with that information, but then you don't give them something actionable to follow up on that, it's a problem. So I'll stop there, because that's kind of a bridge maybe to the next point.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, our third point is you could work on your engagement after doing or during a divine design series. I would also say, even a class, because sometimes a membership class might be separate from a divine design discovery class.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically as,
right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. In this particular point, we're labeling it more as divine design series. So you could be preaching about this. You could be doing a series on spiritual gifts and have that culminate then into an assessment that could honestly, our one in the toolkit can be done in a matter of minutes. You literally could
10 minutes
have people do this like at the end,
the end of the worship service.
Carve out another 10 minutes in the worship service, put a QR code on the screen and have people.
Gosh, I hope that wouldn't overload our system, but I think probably good.
We'll get back to you on whether this is a good idea.
We'll let you know. We haven't stress tested the thing to see if we loaded it with 300 entries at once, if that would somehow crash it.
In general, it would be a good idea to have people do this type of work when you're preaching through this. And, bringing this to mind for them, showing them in God's word how he has equipped us and gifted us and called us to be participating in the work of the ministry. So fantastic time to go, you know what, here's the way that we do this at our church, and really encourage people to take advantage of that opportunity.
Totally. So the first two things we've talked about, really people who are new, that is the best pool of potential volunteers in your church, are people who are new. They're definitely the ones who are most likely to say yes. But everyone else, the people who are at your church now, but who aren't serving right now or not serving regularly, I would push churches. Sometimes they go, oh no, we have really high volunteer engagement. And I go, well, take out the events. I'm not talking about they helped at VBS, or, they decorated their trunk for trunk or treat. I'm talking about people who are volunteering at least once a month in a particular ministry. And then they go, oh, well, okay, well, that number's a lot lower. All right. So you maybe have 60% of your people who aren't serving, 65% of your people who aren't serving on that kind of regularity. And so you got to get those people activated. You missed the boat on them being new and activating them then. That would have been the easiest time to activate them. The second best time would be pushing them through a small group training series or a sermon series or something like that, where you're putting it back in their mind, or going, spending time doing 3 weeks on Ephesians 4, or doing a series on all of the places where the Bible talks about spiritual gifts. So that's 1 Corinthians 12, Ephesians 4. There's one more. It's not coming to my brain right now. Some pastor is yelling at me in his vehicle. But when you do a series like that, it gives an opportunity to try and scoop up some of those folks that maybe fell through the cracks in a poor assimilation process on the front end. And you can't do it one time. That'd be the other mistake the churches make, is they go, well, we did a sermon series on this. I go, well, when did you do it? 4 years ago. Okay, well, you could do something like this, some version of this every year. Mix it up. Don't do the same thing every year. But you could do something like this every year and catch some people into the volunteer recruitment process. So be thinking about that.
Yeah, for sure. And that could even pair in with our fourth one, and that is during kind of this fall push, this
Yeah, this is the
return
one that
to.
everyone expected us to say first.
And for us, it's an oh, by the way, fall
Yeah, it's
push.
like, okay.
But yeah, I mean, if you did a series on this, leading up to, like in August or something, and then have it pair up with getting people engaged when everybody's, kids are going back to school in the U.S. And kind of re-engaging in church after the summer slump, be it real or be it imaginary. It's a good time to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost carve out any time of year and just kind of make a big deal about it. Like, hey, it's, post
Churches,
Easter, we really want to get everybody engaged, or it's a
yeah.
new year in January, we want to get everybody
Yeah.
engaged. I think you can promote things in a way that, builds some excitement and
I mean,
get
people
people.
like the fall because it gives an opportunity for a whole school year's worth of volunteer engagement. And I get it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm not even saying it doesn't work. I think it does work. I don't think it works as well as churches want to think it will work, which is why we're trying to talk about other places where you need to be thinking about volunteer engagement. I'm also not a massive, huge fan of the ministry fair. It's so popular.
Mm-hmm.
People love to run a ministry fair. But what it does is it puts all of those ministries in competition with one another.
Yeah.
And it also, I think, again, it kind of makes the volunteer think, well, which one seems the most cool? Or these people are really desperate. They need the most help. Or I really like Jim, so I guess I'll go serve on his team because I appreciate him and I appreciate the work that he's doing, which are all okay, but those aren't the best reasons for a volunteer to serve. The best reason would be they have a calling
Mm-hmm.
towards something in particular and a gifting towards that thing. That's the best reason for them to volunteer in a particular place because it's more predictive of their staying long term in that
Yeah.
role. And
You could pair
so,
that up. I mean, if you had them do a divine design discovery before the
totally,
ministry fair,
yeah,
and
that's
then,
right.
like, oh, if you got, blue, we got blue ministries over here, might still be some competition between those that you would be maybe a good fit for, but at least you could help narrow things
You could
down and take
find
away
some
some of the
creative
arbitrary.
ways. Yeah, take a twist on the ministry fair. Ministry fairs are also good because it maybe brings an awareness to ministries that are happening in your church that maybe people don't have an awareness of. So I'm not totally like ragging on ministry fairs, but I am suggesting that they're not as effective for volunteer recruitment as many churches want them to be. And so I don't think you should hang your hat on them the way that churches often do. They're very often disappointed in them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And finally, our last one, the best time to recruit volunteers, all the time.
Yeah. Continually.
Continuously. This really, I mean, we're talking culture shift in the church. And one of the ways that we talk about this beginning to happen is sort of decentralizing recruitment into ministry leaders. And so, and from a top down, most of the stuff happens top down. I mean, we train people, we deploy people, we evaluate, but as a part of our process for leading people in the church, recruitment should be part of it, from down to actually fairly low level serving spaces when people can be on the lookout for people that they know within their sphere of influence. Like, I'm looking for somebody, and I've gotten to know some people that I think could be a good fit for this. It doesn't mean you don't still maybe take them through a tool like we're promoting through the toolkit, but move your recruitment down to a broader group of people, and not ministry, 3 ministry leaders that oversee all of our discipleship ministries are led by one person, and that person has to do all the recruiting. There's no need to have it be that narrow, and you can affect the culture of your church to be get a lot of people thinking about, we want more people serving, and I think over time and with some processes and good communication, you can totally make that happen.
Yeah, I think a mistake that churches make, especially when they get bigger, is they think, I can't wait until we have enough resources that we can hire a volunteer coordinator. It's a position I see in a lot of churches that have the money to have one. And I'm okay with that kind of a position if the position is something like an assimilation coordinator, where they're focusing on managing and overseeing the systems for people who are new. Like when someone enters the church, are we helping them get connected to into the new member class so that we can take them through divine design things so they can get connected? I think there's a place for that kind of a role for churches that can afford it. But when the volunteer coordinator role becomes, well, we don't have a system, we have Sheila, and Sheila is the one who recruits all of our volunteers, that's not good, because then if Sheila quits or Sheila's no good at her job, then we're kind of back to square one. I like the way that you said that, and it's something we say all the time to churches. We need to decentralize volunteer recruitment and normalize that as an ongoing process. We need systems and not a person. And so the best time to recruit volunteers is all the time, and it's not there's no one silver bullet. You need all of these things. Aggressively try to recruit people who are new, integrate divine design stuff into your new member class, try to catch people up through regular divine design discovery opportunities, whether that be sermon series or small groups or one-off classes. Do the fall push. Just don't hang your hat entirely on it. Do the ministry fair, but just be thinking of this as volunteer recruitment and leadership development is everyone's problem. It's everyone's responsibility, because we believe Ephesians 4, where Paul teaches us that we are one body, and maturity comes from the whole body working together, building up one another towards spiritual maturity. So I guess that would be my last point that I want to make, is more of a theological one, AJ. It's that our motivations for volunteer recruitment can't be we need enough people to get the job done. The motivation for volunteer recruitment needs to be people are not fully mature, and our local body won't be as effective as it can be until every person realizes, actualizes their calling. And because we want that for each person, we're not going to give up until everybody is living out their calling.
Yeah. Too often the attitude is, really serving and tithing or giving, however you want to look at it, are too often looked at as the downside to the faith. You get all these blessings from Jesus, but I got to pay this back. And that's not it at all. Both aspects are a blessing to the giver, to the one serving. And I think we need to change our tone. And I think we need to be excited about inviting people into this aspect of church, Christianity, faith, relationship with Christ, that there is a benefit and a blessing to you, the one participating in the work of the ministry. And Scripture makes that abundantly clear. It's never talked about as a burden or an obligation. It is an aspect of blessing. And I think we need to, that's how our tone needs to be.
Totally.
So, yeah, my encouragement to you today.
Agreed. All right. Well, hey, that's it. This is episode 296 of the Church Revitalization Podcast. You'll see the links to the article in the description below, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast app or watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let us know that you're there. Share it with a friend in ministry. Hope this blesses and encourages you. And I want to remind you, go to healthychurchestoolkit.com and sign up for free for 7 days. Join us for our workshop this week and see if this tool is a good fit for you. See if it really blesses your church. I believe that it will. We've made it to address a need that we've seen again and again and again, and it's a need that probably exists in your church too. So we hope that it blesses you. Oh, and did you want to say anything, AJ? You want to say bye?
It sounded like you were about done. I was just going to smile. Bye.
I'm leaving that in. Awkward silence. We love you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.